of the Musée Précaire outside of Paris. This point is pertinent, for Hirschhorn has positioned some of his projects along this interface, this social interface. Not only this Musée Précaire, the Bellevue in Paris in 2004, is another photograph of the activities that occurred there, but all three of his monuments to date. Monuments is his term. A monument to the philosopher Spinoza in the red light district of Amsterdam in 1992, a monument to the French philosopher Deleuze in a mostly North African quarter of Avignon in the south of France in 2000, and a monument to the French philosopher Georges Bataille in a largely Turkish neighborhood in Kassel, Germany in 2002. This is during a Documenta, a big art show in Europe, as you know. Is there a way to cross from our stable, secure, and safe space, Hirschhorn asks, in order to join the space of the precarious? Is it possible, by voluntarily crossing the border of this protected space, to establish new values, real values, the values of the precarious, uncertainty, instability, and self-authorization? So, what does a practice of the precarious entail? The truth can only be touched, Hirschhorn has said, in hazardous, contradictory, and hidden encounters. This suggests the first principle in this work, an actual sharing in the conditions of social risk lived by a precariat in a particular situation. And to this end, Hirschhorn sometimes takes up the guise of the squatter. In order to reach this moment, I have to be present and I have to be awake, Hirschhorn continues. I have to stand up. I have to face the world, the reality, the time, and I have to risk myself. That is the beauty in precariousness. This is another project to the Dutch philosopher. Actually, he was expelled from the Netherlands, Spinoza, that Hirschhorn staged in a very poor working project outside of Amsterdam in 2009. And here you see him, this is the second one on the left, with the workers that are members of this community. Alert to the caution from the philosopher Deleuze about the indignity of speaking for others, Hirschhorn does not stand in place of the precariat. Rather, he insists, I want to engage in dialogue with the other without neutralizing him. And during this project outside of Amsterdam, he had philosophers from all over the world, but also neighbors from this project speak and perform. This is another photograph. In fact, Hirschhorn does not always seek a solidarity with his precariat, for such solidarity might only come of a forced union of very different kinds of people. Here's another shot of the structure. In this case, the man under the umbrella is the well-known and very important Italian Marxist philosopher Antonio Negri. To the benign community imagined in relational aesthetics, Hirschhorn counters with the principle of presence and production, which names his double commitment to be present on the site where he produces his work. And he acknowledges that the result might be antagonism with residents as much as fellowship or community. Here's another philosopher, German philosopher, at the same Spinoza festival. And you can see that the residents are not much interested in what he has to say. And here you see the structure, you see the big project buildings around the structure. Precarious, the term, derives from the Latin precarius, that is, obtained by entreaty, depending on the favor of another, hence uncertain, precarious, from precum, or prayer. This definition underscores that this state of insecurity is a constructed one, engineered by a regime of power on whose favor the precariat depends, in which it can only petition. This means that to act out the precarious, as Hirschhorn does, is not only to evoke its privative effects, but also to suggest how and why they are produced, and so to implicate the authority that imposes this condition. The note of entreaty, lodged in the word, is strong in many Hirschhorn projects, where it often carries the force of accusation as well. Here the political dimension of the precarious shades into the ethical. To give a form to the precarious, Hirschhorn comments, is to attest to the fragility of life, awareness of which compels me to be awakened, to be present, to be attentive, to be open. It compels me to be alive. This is from another project, actually a theater project, where we would have residents of the community stage self-written plays. In Precarious Life, her brief essay on the French philosopher Emmanuel Levinas, the American philosopher Judith Butler writes in a similar way. In some manner, we come to exist in the moment of being addressed. And something about our existence proves precarious when that address fails. For example, if I encounter you and you do not acknowledge my existence, my existence comes under risk, becomes precarious. Here Butler explores the notion of the face, which Levinas posed as the very image of the extreme precariousness of the other. To respond to the face, to understand its meaning, Butler writes, means to be awake to what is precarious in another life, or rather, to be awake to the precariousness of life itself. This is the face often put forward by the precarious art of Hirschhorn. So that's the first concept. Wrong room. The second concept at work in his practice is the bête, which is French for stupid or animal. We use the term creature. In a 2003 conversation with Hirschhorn, critic Benjamin Butler, I talked a little bit about him when I talked about Richter, Gerhard Richter the other night, begins with a typical art historical question. Who was more important for you, Andy Wharhol or Joseph Beuys? And this is another photograph of the Spinoza Festival in which Hirschhorn asked children from the neighborhood, from this community, to act out certain plays, or performances. In this case, they acted out a famous performance by Joseph Beuys. So you see a photograph held up by one of the kids, performance in which he attempted to explain art to a dead hare, a dead rabbit. Hirschhorn refuses this either or, Warhol or Beuys, suggesting that he has drawn on both. Every man is an artist, Beuys liked to say, and just as Hirschhorn affirms this commonality, so does he affirm the commonality offered by Warhol, whose painting 129 died in 1962 struck him strongly when he first saw it in 1978, when Hirschhorn was 21. I felt included immediately, included in the work of the artist, included in art. This is what I meant the other night. I don't know if any of you were there, but when I talked about pop as an art of the common, it seeks to address us all, and even seeks to find a commonality in mass death. More recently, the importance of a non-exclusive public was underscored for Hirschhorn by a reading of the book by Jacques Rancière called The Ignorant Schoolmaster, with its proclamation of the equal intelligence of the human being. One might sum up these commitments with an anecdote about Brecht, the German playwright and critic, who's reported to have kept next to his typewriter a little wood donkey with a sign around its neck that read, "Even I must understand." Hirschhorn anticipated some of the positions of the precarious in a 1995 book of crude collages titled Les plaintifs, les bêtes, les politiques. The plaintiffs, the stupid, the politicos. These works were directly inspired by the placards I saw on the street and in the metro. Cardboard signs made by people in existential need. Signs that appear in a form that is economic, effective, beautiful. They are beautiful because they combine the language of engagement with the language of sincerity. The result is pure. Now let me just, I'm sure most of you can read this, but let me just translate for you. Am I a loser or a winner? I wanted to analyze. Thanks for helping me understand. Thanks to all the psychoanalysts. That last bit might be a little bit ironic. His own collages question a world that can tolerate with apparent indifference the most blatant contradictions, past and present. One work reproduces a Soviet poster designed by the constructivist Gustav Clusis of a colossal Stalin looming over an industrial plant, beside which Hirschhorn scratches in pen, "Help me, I find this poster beautiful, but I know what Stalin did. What should I do? What to do?" The plaintiff is one register of the precarious, but just as often Hirschhorn speaks in the voice of the bet as in silly or stupid. "Help me understand" is a recurrent cry of these collages, and the sentiment is not false. These works, Hirschhorn tells us, were born of an existential need on my part too, a need to comprehend.